Hi everyone, Paul Akers, host of the American Innovator. You know, the innovative spirit is alive and well, and everywhere I travel around the world, I bring back ideas and creativity to share with my audience to continuously improve and change the way we live. Welcome to the American Innovator.
Well, this week it's Cuba. Our friends Gordon and Cindy and Leanne and I got together in Miami and flew over to Cuba. And on the trip over, we met Eloy on the plane and gave us a little briefing of what we could expect.
A big welcome to Cuba.
Thank you.
Very much Cienfuegos, which is my city.
Okay.
It's the only city made by French under the crown of Spain. So you will love it. You will see the architecture of our city.
Yeah.
It's unique. A lot of colors, a lot of big white streets.
Yeah.
You will love it.
Oh, thank you. What's your name?
My name is Eloy.
Eloy, Paul. Nice to
Hi,
meet you.
Paul.
Pleasure. I can't wait to go.
So
to
we
Cuba.
haven't even touched down. We already made friends with Eloy on the plane, and these are the Russian submarine bases. As we fly in over the bay, you can see the remnants of the Russian influence. It's a beautiful city. And again, think about this. Americans landing in Cuba, this is not normal, but because of the special educational visa, we were able to get in there for about a week and a half, and we just had a fantastic time. We got off the plane, and then Julio, our guide, picked us up, and we began our trip to our hotel from Cienfuegos. And as we drive down the road, you see a lot of horse and carriage. It's a little primitive. It's literally like stepping back to the 50s. From there, we drove down the coast to Trinidad. Trinidad's a very old but beautiful city. As we entered into the city, we began to see the flavor of the city. Lots of horse and carriages again, which really was surprising to me. I thought I was going to see old cars, but no, lots of horse and carriages. You'll see that. Our hotel was right on the beach. It was a resort. As we checked in, they had a traditional dance group that met us. It was very nice. And it was sunny and beautiful. And next thing you know, it was pouring rain. It's amazing how the weather changed in the tropics. And then they have the Cuban dancing, but boy, did they know how to shake their booty. Let me tell you, these people can make it happen. So we had a lot of fun there. We actually took some dance lessons a couple different times when we were in Cuba, and they are quite proficient at this. Look at the way this guy's spinning on his head. No thank you. I think my head would collapse. Not enough in there to make it solid enough to do this on. But anyways, we just had a fantastic time. And then the next day we went into Trinidad, respectively. And again, we saw a very old town. And the people were very nice. Lots of street vendors everywhere. We went into a clay pottery factory. And it was very interesting watching them do their work. And then this guy was fascinating. He actually mixes the clay. And I said, wow, that dude is buff, man. Maybe if I mixed the clay, I would be buff. And I asked him, is there any chance I could do it? And he goes, sure, come ahead. They don't speak any English. It was very funny. And I tell you, it was very difficult to do. He made it look so easy to tear it apart and then slap it together. But I was struggling to do it. But they got a kick out of the fact that I wanted to do it. More horse and carriages, beautiful old cars. Just a fun place to walk around and experience everything. A schoolyard with kids in it, lots of dirt streets, and just a very old flavor. Farmers going through the marketplace and going through the town, and they have their food out on the tables to sell. It's kind of romantic in a lot of ways. Very much stepping back in time. I like that best about it. And then we went to a wealthy merchant's house back in the time, about 100 years ago, and we toured all over this beautiful home, went up this staircase and got up to this huge tower overlooking all of Trinidad. And it was quite beautiful looking out over the city. And you'll see lots of restoration going on everywhere. Very slow pace, but they're trying to do the best they can with the very limited funds they have to restore the architectural wonder, basically, of Cuba. It's beautifully architecturally, and they've had a lot of influence from the Europeans, and it's quite fascinating. But it's a typical village back 50 years ago, with fishermen walking around with their fish and guitar players sitting in windowsills playing guitar. And this guy was awesome. We really enjoyed him. He was so cute. We went into an old cathedral, and we looked around in there, and just beautiful craftsmanship. Great artistically, and there's some Cubans out there smoking a cigar, and then these guys were fantastic. This is the background music that you're listening to. They sat there and played in this little square under the shade tree, and I recorded them, and I thought, wow, this is great background music. Look how relaxed they are and how calm they are. It looked like they have a pretty decent life, quiet, humble people doing their best. school children walking down the cobblestone streets. And then we went to a beautiful sugar plantation that was further east, and we had lunch there, and they sang for us, and it was just another exceptional time. They had this huge tower that the slave owner had built, actually, to keep an eye on his slaves. That's what the purpose of the tower was. And I climbed up there and then looked down, and you could see the people selling things down the streets below. Cindy and Leanne were down there. Just a great view. You can just imagine what this is like just 100 years ago. So after lunch, we bought a few things in the streets, and we got back on the bus, and we continued our journey throughout Cuba. We went back that evening to the hotel. They had a great dance performance that we watched, and they were really pretty doggone good. It was awesome. Now, I took some dance lessons, and I guarantee you my booty did not look like that or shake like that, but I tried pretty hard. Later on, I'll show you a couple of the clips of me dancing. It's hysterical. As we went through some of the other villages, we saw just people about their daily work and sitting around enjoying themselves. Then we went to an agricultural farm where this man had imported all these exotic trees from all over the world. Our guide showed us all the different kinds of plants. It was fascinating. I swung on a vine, just messing around. But it was a beautiful place where we saw a lot of fascinating different types of plants.
The female flowers out here, and the little one, the yellow ones, are the male ones. So the bee just need to walk around the flower to spread the pollen. And in a couple of months, 2 months, fruits. The English name in books, cannonball tree. Not cannonball, cannonball. Very big fruit, round ones with about 2 kilos, not edible. Well, we can eat it, but just once.
Cannibal tree. So this is an ebony berry from an ebony tree, and then he's going to show us all kinds of different ones here.
Okay, guys.
It's like a giant acorn.
That's the African tulip tree.
The flowers are just spectacular there. It's tropical, and it should be. Now watch this little flower. It's beautiful.
Move this part, and then
nature. Biomimicry. Imagine all the things we could learn from nature, and all the things we do learn from nature. We drove through some other towns, very poor, very back 40, 50 years, the cars, the way people work. But, they seem relatively satisfied. I know they would love to be free, but that's just not in the cards right now. And then I came to this train station, very old-fashioned, and watched it unload. It was just very interesting to see yesteryear, if you will, what it was like a long time ago. People working on scaffolding, trying to do repair work to the buildings, that most of them were crumbling. We went along the coast in this town, and we saw some of the beautiful architecture that was prevalent in this city back in the day from very wealthy merchants and people who were business owners, but those people are gone now, leaving the government in control of most of the businesses where they have very few choices, and businesses are just not a thriving entity in Cuba. From there we went up the coast to the Bay of Pigs, a very famous military battle in the 60s under John F. Kennedy. We went through a lot of towns and saw how people just exist, whether they're filling lighters on the streets or doing repair work to the crumbling infrastructure. People are just getting by and making do.
Now I'm in Cuba, and I'm doing the Cuban deal. I'm directing and driving my own vehicle. Not quite as fast as my Porsche, but it will do.
And from there we went on to hear a choral choir that was heavenly, probably the best I've ever heard in my life. You will not believe what they sounded like. So we went from that heavenliness to Gordon and I finding a street vendor that sold us some cigars and took us into their home, which was fantastic. To go into a real Cuban person's home and experience it was just really a very special. And the father's grandfather made cigars his whole life, and he showed us some of the tools that he used to make the cigars, and almost bought one of the presses as well. And I bought a few cigars from him, and I smoked a few when I was in Cuba. And Gordon is my cohort in crime there. He's always
Don't
getting
hang
into
yourself,
trouble,
Gordon.
and we're always wandering
Look at
off from
right
the
in the
group
bedroom.
and
Isn't this cool?
doing things we shouldn't be doing, but we were experiencing things that most people never get to
Look at Gordon.
experience.
This is the one I
because
want.
this is real Cuba, man. This is the
This is
real
best.
thing.
120 bucks.
Fermentation
Look,
5 years, fermentation con honey
5
y ron.
years. Look at these.
Black cigar. Here is cigar, Maduro 5, es fermentation 5 years
5 years.
con honey y ron.
It's the original wood.
Now, this is the original press of the grandfathers. He had it on the shelf, and I just asked him what it was. And he says, oh, my grandfather, that's the press he used to make his cigars. I said, would you sell it? And he said, yeah, 50 pesos. I almost
50
bought it, but I
pesos?
didn't think I'd get it back
For
into the
that whole
country.
thing?
It would have been a beautiful antique to have. There you go, a beautiful Cuban cigar. Smoked by a Cuban, and I learned a lot about smoking cigars when I was there, actually. I could do a whole video series just on that. And we went back into the streets and just saw more street vendors and just loved the feel of Cuba. And as we went home in the evening, we saw this couple dancing. This is actually a dance studio. He was the teacher. A little short guy with that tall gal. Isn't that funny? Then the next day we woke up and we continued our journey towards Havana. And we saw all kinds of interesting things. This guy was a street vendor, again, selling loaves of bread. And we stopped at a local gas station to find out what the cost of petrol was. And we took a look at this guy's very unique transportation system, which was quite effective. And he was very willing to talk to us and show us what he was doing. Cuban people, by and large, were very nice, very gracious, and we had a good time exploring and just learning about how they get along. This is, I believe, a place where they make charcoal. Then we went along the bay, and this is by the Bay of Pigs now, and this is actually the museum. And look at this very creative and innovative vehicle, if you want to call it that this guy put together right in front of the Museum of the Bay of Pigs. That's the museum right there. And then we went to another sugar plantation, and this one was incredible because they had a train, an old steam train that they let you ride on, and we got a little practice because I was actually going to become the engineer, and Gordon and Cindy got a little practice before we got on the real thing. And look at this. Could you imagine doing this in the United States? They'd never let you do it. They'd have every rule and regulation that would keep you from enjoying this experience. But I'm actually piloting this massive locomotive that is, again, a throwback in time. 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago. Who knows how old this thing was. But we had a great time. Look at this old boiler in there and stoking it with wood and coal. It was just fantastic, and I'm operating this thing. He's letting me do it. It was fantastic. Lots of little idiosyncrasies. You had to be very careful. So I successfully backed the train way up into the sugar plantation. We got off. We saw them tending the gardens and the fields there, the old-fashioned way. And then we saw banana trees and how the bananas grow. And they put on a little show for us with great food and fruit and dancing, and this guy was the leader, and he was hysterical. I think he danced with every woman there, and he knew how to shake his booty pretty well too. Not bad. And that older lady there, she shook her booty pretty well too. And then we got back on the train and we went back into town, this time going forward instead of backwards. There's 1716 on that train. That is one old piece of machinery. Now what's interesting is we went back into town, we passed by the original headquarters that Fidel Castro actually made some of the war movements during the Bay of Pigs. You'll see it here in just a minute on the left-hand side of the screen. It's fascinating. We had great music on the way in. So you're going to see it here coming up. That's the building where Fidel Castro actually made phone calls during the Bay of Pigs. This is a wood shop that I peeked over the top and old cars. As we got closer to Havana, you started to see more and more of the Yank tanks. I went scuba diving in the Bay of Pigs, and then we stopped at a restaurant just outside of Havana, and we checked into the Hotel National, and this was a fantastic, beautiful hotel where all the movie stars and people used to hang out. Havana was like the place in the world to go. It was where some of the wealthiest people in the world hung out, and they had posters and pictures and photographs of people from all over the world, movie stars to actors to presidents, you name it. This was the hub of culture, architectural, and entertainment. And of course, I think it was Phyllis, she showed us that she knows how to boogie too. So the next day we went out along the coastline of Havana, And it was just beautiful. We went to a lot of different places. This is a medical clinic in one of the neighborhoods. We went to a dance studio. This is the dance studio here. So this was an educational tour. So we did a lot of things to learn about what the Cuban people do. We got to see them practice. Of course, the Cubans are very good at music and dance. They're very good at the arts, and they're very disciplined in the way they approach it. And this went on for a good hour when we were there. I caught some of the clips of the girls really rigorously applying their skills. And then Julio, our driver, took us by his home. Again, what an unusual experience. These are his 2 children and his wife and the dog as well. And we got to go by and see his family. How special. And then we had a birthday song, which was so nice on the bus because somebody had their birthday. And we had a great time. We had a great group of people.
And we're going to see what happens. See this?
And then we were in Havana. You know, some of the street people, again, just had very funny stuff.
People United States, I'm sorry, really, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Sue, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, yeah. Wall Street, New York.
I was afraid to get my hand bitten off there.
Obama. No premio Nobel. Cuba money.
These people know how to have lunch at a restaurant. This woman sang. It was fantastic. It was beautiful. Went back on the streets. And just like in the U.S. and everywhere else in the world, there's always 3 construction workers watching and 1 doing the work. It's funny how it's a universal truth no matter where you go. So I took pictures from every angle all during the day, and every time I went there was always 3 sitting and 1 working. Oh, and then back by the guy with the dog. He is just so funny. And then we went to a retirement home just to kind of see how they take care of the elderly. It was a very nice place. It looked like it was owned and run by a church. And the people were very friendly. Went out onto the street, some of the street vendors, and these are the yank tanks. We went into the parks where they'll have their cab services, and they'll drive you around in it, and they hang out, and they're just everywhere. I mean, you don't even see these in the U.S. like this, and yet they're everywhere there. And then we went out to Ernest Hemingway's house, and we saw how they process sugar cane, and they actually made a nice drink out of this. And we went into Hemingway's house, and it was fantastic. For whom the bell tolls. This is the bell that he actually rang for dinner. His home was beautiful. It was designed, I believe, by a French guy, and then they bought it from a French architect. And he lived there, and this was the tower that he edited his books in, and it overlooked Havana. It's about 40 miles outside of town. And this is the room, actually, we did a lot of his editing. He had a swimming pool. He buried all his dogs right here. And this was his boat that he was so famous for. He loved to fish. He loved the Caribbean. He loved this area because the fishing was fantastic. And this is actually his boat and the chair that he sat in when he fished. Oh, and here's the dance scene, so don't laugh too hard. I am a terrible dancer, and I'm out of sync. That's all I can say. But when I speed it up, it looks a lot better. There we go. They got us all boogieing, man. And then we went outside of Havana to this beautiful artist's home where he did everything in tile. He did his entire house in tile. The interesting thing is he had some health problems, but he went to the U.S. for treatment and then came back, and he's doing well. It was, again, a very interesting journey. Lots of old cars, the cab service pulling up, and then we had a great lunch. And Cindy got up there and boogied with the guys a little bit. And we just had a fantastic time. Cubans know how to have fun, and they love music. So at the end of the day, if you're ever looking for an exceptional trip, Cuba is it. And that evening, the last night, we got into the yank tanks and the cabs, and we drove all over the town, and we acted like a bunch of little kids, and we went to a beautiful dinner. We saw some of the political statues and signage around the city. And we went to this fantastic restaurant where we had a great meal and great entertainment. And at the end of the day, Cuba was amazing.
Remember, life's an adventure. Be a part of the solution. Go out, learn, improve, change, think outside the box. We can change the way the world thinks. Be an innovator. really got to stop getting myself in these situations. That's a leopard, and that's an elephant. Yes, and this is a cheetah.
Like, oh, I saw
Here,
that.
kitty, 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 kitty,
Oh,
kitty.
cute. He wants to play.
Uh-oh. Got it.